You pick a punish. You pick a punish. Okay, so that's difficult. Oh. Oh. Okay. Oh my god. Oh. Oh.
Welcome back. Today is the 22nd of April 2026, and we are joined by Professor John Mearsheimer. Thank you again for coming back on, my friend. It's always good to see you.
Good to see you, Glenn, and glad to be back.
So, I'm trying to make a bit sense out of the US strategy in the Iran war, because it seems to me that Trump was in a difficult spot and he needed an out. So he accepted the ceasefire conditioned on Iran 10 points as starting point, at least for negotiations. Then he finally had it, but he then moves forth with this blockade on Iranian ports, and then there appears to be a sabotage of the Islamabad talks. I'm trying to make sense of this. I mean, was this only to get breathing space to rearm and regroup, or did the Israelis intervene to keep the war going, or is this just a unique style of diplomacy that Trump is pursuing?
It is a unique form of diplomacy. There's no question about that. Whether it makes any sense is another matter. And I think it's quite clear it doesn't make any sense. The bottom line here is that Trump needs an exit strategy. He just has to put an end to this war sooner rather than later. And the reason for that is that he has no military strategy that he can turn to that can allow him to win the war. There's just no military option here. As we've talked about before, if you go
I haven't
up the
showered in
escalation
fucking years, dude.
it's the Iranians who prevail, not the Americans. So there's just no military option. Furthermore, the world economy is teetering. And the longer this goes on, the more damage that's going to be done to the world economy. And by the way, if you do go up the escalation ladder, that'll really be another hammer blow to the world economy. And this has political consequences inside the United States for President Trump, not to mention the fact that it has huge economic and social consequences for countries all over the world. So he's under tremendous pressure to come up with some sort of agreement with Iran that allows us to walk away from this. The problem that he faces is that he's incompetent. The administration is incompetent when it comes to diplomacy. And the best example of this is the subject you and I have talked about ad nauseum, which is the Ukraine-Russia war. You want to remember that President Trump promised when he came into office that he was going to settle that war. And in fact, he said that he might even settle it before he moves into the White House. And he's made a complete hash of those diplomatic negotiations with the Russians. It's really quite remarkable, as you have reported in a whole slew of different interviews with a variety of people over the past year or so. It's really quite amazing. So why would anyone expect him to be any more adept in negotiating with the Iranians than he has been in negotiating with the Ukrainians and the Russians? He's just not a good diplomat by any stretch of the imagination. And to add to the trouble, he's got to deal with Israel and the Israel lobby. And this is a very important issue, Glenn. The fact is that the Israelis understand that up to this point in time, we've lost the war. We meaning the United States and Israel. We had a set of goals going into the war. 4 main goals, as you know: regime change, getting rid of Iran's nuclear enrichment capability, getting rid of their long-range missiles, and getting them to stop supporting
Fuck, dude. Fuck.
Hezbollah and the Houthis. We failed on all counts. And on top of that, as everybody knows, the Iranians, who did not control the Strait of Hormuz before February 28th and did not have a toll booth located in the middle of it, now control the Strait of Hormuz and have a toll booth located right there. So the Iranians have won. From an Israeli point of view, this is a disastrous situation because the Israelis view Iran as an existential threat. You and I can disagree with the Israelis, but that doesn't matter. They think it's an existential threat. And of course, the lobby here in the United States goes along with Israel no matter what. So the end result is that Israel wants to continue the war, which is very important to understand that. They want us to continue hammering away at Iran to try to beat them into submission. If we don't beat them into submission, well, we'll just destroy them. Do what we did in Gaza to Iran. That's the Israeli view, and that's the Israel lobby's view. So if you think about the situation in Ukraine, going back there, and then you think about the situation with regard to Iran, you see inept diplomacy on the part of the Trump administration in both cases. But in the case of Iran, the situation's even worse because you've got Israel and the lobby leaning on him not to come up with a peace agreement that reflects what's happening in the war, which is another way of saying which reflects the fact that Iran has won. So Trump is veering back and forth between two positions. One, which is pushed forward by the economic realities and the realities of what has happened in the actual fighting to work out some sort of deal. He has powerful incentives because of the state of the world economy and because of what's happened in the fighting to cut a deal. He understands he has no military option. He understands we've effectively lost, and he understands the damage that could be done to the world economy. That tells him, let's cut a deal. But on the other side, he has the Israelis and he has their minions here in the United States. And they are powerful and they're honeycombed throughout the entire administration to put enormous pressure on him not to cut a deal and instead to play hardball with the Iranians. So what you see him doing is wavering back and forth between these two positions. And in the end, we have been unable to get a ceasefire, much less meaningful negotiations started. You want to understand, we don't even have a ceasefire yet, because a ceasefire involved shutting down the fighting in Lebanon between the Israelis and Hezbollah, which has kind of been done, and number two, opening the strait. And the strait opened for one day, and then because President Trump wouldn't take off the American blockade of the strait, the Iranians put the blockade back on. So we haven't even fulfilled all the conditions that were required for a ceasefire, much less began to move seriously towards an agreement. And all the time this is happening, the clock is ticking on the world economy. And this is a very dangerous situation.
Is it possible, though, with the ceasefire that this could be a way for the United States to get Iran to fight the war on America's terms? Because this appears to be one of the things that has failed since the beginning. That is, when the US attacked, it looked as if Trump would have favored to do a little bit of bombing and then stop. And the Iranians essentially didn't want to give him this kind of escalation control. And they made it clear that any attack would get a massive response. So so shutting down the Strait of Hormuz, attacking the Gulf allies, essentially denying the US this kind of escalation control. Now, in the ceasefire, seems to follow the same logic. Yes, initially, the US appeared to agree to this 10-point plan, at least as a point of departure to start discussions. But then it seems to be this incrementalism. Well, the US should be allowed to put a blockade on Iran. Israel should be allowed to bomb a little bit in Lebanon. US should be able to seize or fire on some Iranian ships, and to keep it, I guess, low intensity. Is it possible that it's just to get the war under control, or is it the ceasefire gone wrong? Because I think Iran will probably interpret this as a wider effort. Whatever minor escalation there's now, the overarching objective would be the effort to destroy their nation or wipe out their civilization, to use Trump's language. So do you think this has anything to do with how the war is fought, or just to bring it down, the intensity of it, and limit the targets that Iran are targeting?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And let me give you my 2 cents on it. I think that what Trump wants to do here is he wants to use military leverage to get the Iranians to agree to a ceasefire and then to come to the negotiating table. And he wants to use that military leverage to get a good deal. Not a great deal. He's not going to get a great deal. He wants, I think, to get something that's better than the JCPOA when it comes to the nuclear enrichment issue. But he thinks, military leverage to do that. So let's talk about military leverage. My view is that any country any great power, I should say, has three levers that it can use, three military instruments that it can use to get what it wants, either through coercive purposes or by fighting the actual war. And one is air power, two is ground power or land power, and three is naval power. Those are the sort of three instruments that a state has. And we started the war on February 28th and waged it before the ceasefire, largely with air power. We struck Iran from the air, and we struck them with naval aircraft, but we didn't have a blockade on at that point in time. It was all about air power. And that air power campaign then failed. And that's why you move to a ceasefire. And that's why we can say today that up to this point, Iran has won the war. The air power campaign failed. And by the way, everybody knew, let me put it differently, everybody should have known beforehand that air power alone was not going to defeat Iran. The historical record is clear here. So that's air power. Then there's ground power. And here we're talking about using ground forces for invading, for the purpose of invading Iran. This is not a serious option. First of all, we don't have many combat troops at all in the region. There's talk about 50,000 American troops in the region. Only a small slice of them are combat troops. And the idea that even if all of them were combat troops, you could invade Iran and do something to end this war is not a serious argument. We don't have the combat forces there to launch a ground invasion. Furthermore, President Trump is allergic to boots on the ground. Furthermore, the American people are not willing to tolerate the kind of pain that would be required if you're going to launch a full-scale invasion of Iran. Just think about how deeply concerned we were about the life of that pilot who was shot down. Right? The idea that he might be killed was a horrible thought. Our tolerance for pain over the Iran war is not very high. The idea that you're going to launch a massive ground offensive into Iran, suffer lots of casualties, have soldiers coming back in body bags, that's just not possible. It's just not going to happen. And it seems to me that President Trump, although he occasionally hints at maybe a tiny ground force incursion, the ground force option is just not a serious option. So what I'm telling you is up to now, the air power option was tried and failed. We have no serious ground power option or land force option. And unsurprisingly, what have we turned to? We've turned to the naval option. And we have a blockade on the Strait. And furthermore, we're running around the world hunting down ships carrying Iranian oil way out in East Asia, or Southwest Asia. And the question you have to ask yourself is whether or not you think this blockade is going to bring the Iranians to their knees. And I would say to you, first of all, Glenn, if the blockade is such a war-winning weapon, or is an effective war-winning weapon, why didn't we turn to it earlier? Why are we only turning to it now? And the answer is, it's not a war-winning weapon. First of all, I don't think the U.S. Navy can sustain a blockade for a long period of time.
Whoa.
We have a limited number of ships. The wear and tear on our ships is enormous. I think a lot of ships, based on what I read, are getting through the blockade. we run the risk at some point that the Chinese will escort ships into the Strait of Hormuz, which will put us in a very difficult position because then we'll have to face the fact that we might have to
Whoa.
attack Chinese ships if we want to prevent those Iranian
Oh my god.
cargo ships or oil tankers from going into the Gulf. I mean, there's all sorts of trouble that one can imagine with this blockade. And I think very importantly, what you saw today is that the Iranians have captured two ships in the Persian Gulf. They've seized two ships in retaliation to the two
difficult.
ships that we have seized. So they're playing tit for tat. Moreover, the Iranians have made it manifestly clear that if you want to come back to the bargaining table, you have to put an end to the blockade. So at some point, Trump is going to have to end the blockade just to go back to the bargaining table. He can't dilly-dally forever and ever. We have to get negotiations going here. And that means he's going to have to take the blockade off at some point. But my previous point is the blockade's not going to be that effective. Is it going to inflict some pain on the Iranians? Yeah. But the Iranians have demonstrated that they have a high tolerance for pain, a much higher tolerance for pain than we do. So the naval option is not a war-winning option. We have no war-winning option. President Trump talks about sort of going back to air power. And a lot of people say, we're going to go in and bomb this and bomb that. That's not going to work either. If it was going to work, he would have done it. We tried bombing. It didn't work. What's the new formula that's going to allow us to succeed? Oh, we're going to go in and destroy all of their energy infrastructure and basically make Iran unlivable. That's not going to work. Everybody knows that because the Iranians can retaliate. So we're out of options. And what he has to do here is he has to get a ceasefire in place ASAP, and then they have to start negotiating. And he has to come up with a clever set of proposals that he can work on with the Iranians so that we can work out some sort of deal and shut this down as much as possible and rescue the international economy before it goes off a cliff.
Well, this tit for tat. So this has been one of the interesting ways this war has developed. That is, whatever the U.S. does, it appears that the Iranians can mirror it and go up that escalation ladder with the Americans. But that's why I'm wondering if this is what the U.S. will do. What do you expect on the Iranian side? Because there doesn't seem to be a diplomatic path here. At least it seems to be too far apart at the moment. The U.S. again, it might do this heavy air campaign, and then
you're not doing it for necessity.
complemented with the sea blockade.
I recognize that people will always act and behave in a way that is selfish.
Keith
So
Kellogg
they can have a set of rules in society that manages the response in those behaviors. Because while everybody might not have the same in creators of said content, I didn't say pirating was good. I said pirating was different. Right now.
I hate this album cover so much from The Weeknd right here. Bro, this is the worst album cover I've ever seen. Dude, I hate this one. I hate it.
I mean, dude. What was I trying to say?
the check?
No, I think we should go our separate ways.
Oh, you think we have a choice in this?
What do you mean?
You know.
You know, it's not a naturally occurring eye color. Yes. You're good with that.
I just want to hook up with a guy who's hot. I just want a guy who's good looking and fun. I'm looking for a man who's in shape, has a good job, and wants kids. I'm looking for a man who communicates, is family oriented, and is looking to have kids within the next 2 or 3 years. Here are my non-negotiables. He can't have a business degree, be spiritually grounded, nice to his family, never wears necklaces, went to summer camp, and has brown hair. I never go vodka. I'm gonna start dating women. I just want to hook up with a guy who's hot. I just want a guy who's good looking and fun.
Protesting and the rioting going on in schools, free Palestine, case for Gaza. When you see that, what do you think about it?
I think it's pretty funny that it wasn't a problem until it was against Israel. It wasn't a problem with BLM. It was fucking encouraged.
BLM is a problem.
Bullshit. They fucking encouraged it. They let them burn down police stations. There was no repercussion. It's not like I'm talking about our government, our media encouraged that shit. They encouraged it with BLM. Like, they literally burned down police stations and it was fun. The mayor came out and was like, yeah, no problem, no arrest, no big deal, we don't give a fuck. Like, take down statues, destroy buildings, burn cop cars, do whatever you want to do. But the moment it was Israel, now all of a sudden, like, these students get the shit beat out of them, they get arrested, they get pepper sprayed, they get fucking maced, and those are peaceful protests. BLM was not peaceful. It was fine because it wasn't criticizing Israel. What does that tell you?
Walt Disney took a bite of the hot dog, counted his steps, then tossed it back on the ground, according to the legend. And he watched other guests do the same. When he counted, he found it was about 30 steps before someone would drop their trash. And when he opened Disneyland and installed trash cans, he personally measured out 30 steps between each one. So now, when you walk through a Disney theme park, you'll find a trash can exactly when you need it. Walt Disney took a...
I say girl, Chinese.
Food like only thing that's a scoop, you know.
Oh fuck.
Trump will be re-elected for a third term. I think Trump.
You're crying because you want to fight. You're like me. All I want is something people's face. Can't fight all the time. After 8, 9 pressure points, sometimes I drive around for hours. You're crying because motherfucker, like me. All I want is something people's face. You can't fight all the time. After 8, 9 pressure points, sometimes I drive around for hours. You're crying because you.
Back to 724.
Here's one more thing I want to tell you, Trip. Henry Tate, one of the better chess players in world history. I respect Henry Tate.
You got one problem though, Jake. You got no game.
I'm just with my badge.
How's the new dog? Oh,
he's always got 11.
He was a pinhead.
You said, John, the LED lights for a gimmick. So, I want it. And you said, John, I don't need 200 watt fast charging. Okay, that's gone too. And you said, John, I don't need this gearing charge. Sure. So, here is my John's brand new 4-in-1 65 watt fast charging cable. Half the cost of the other one, and it still has Lightning, USB, and 2 additional type ports, making compatible with pretty much any device that you can think of. 265 watt.
That one there was a violation personally. I'm gonna have.
Does a hyper mount work with a...
I made money because it snowed last.
I just thought it
Me? I'm only vaccinated. Oh my god. I think it is.
White egg, brown Coke. Stained egg, purple whitening strip, regular whitening strip. Try the whitening strips on the egg because it's like so it stains our teeth or stains our teeth in general. So let's see if it works now. Snap on my teeth, cut it in half, peel it, stretch it, and stick it. Now regular. Now wait 30 minutes, I'll be back with the results from my teeth and the egg. I spent about 30 minutes, so let's see the results. No difference. Well, what the heck? I mean, all the colors why that didn't work, but let's try my teeth. Literally no difference. Try the purple. What the hell? I'll run this off. Yo, look at that. Look at man. Look at the difference. There's literally no filter. Wow. I just want to brush my teeth, as you can see. My top teeth are way brighter than my bottom teeth still. These are the only white just that.
Let's see what's inside.
Surgery in the summer, and it's going to take an entire month to recover from. And I'm people have the craziest goal because you're also before I tell you what it's for. I haven't.
I'll do 2 just for you. Is it a little much going there? Yeah, it's not.
Oh, run out there.
What's it called?
A mouse left in mountain. Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Oh my gosh. What is that monster? This is the craziest creature we've ever had on this channel. No, we just have. This is no joke. I'm almost positive this is a female wildebeest because we noticed that 37 pound facts. So that means that this wildebeest is pregnant. So we literally might have a pregnant wildebeest right here on our.
First ring, wake the hell up. Excuse me, jackass. I said, excuse me, jackass, you're in the way.
Don't want to look like an old man.
Ring those bells. Comment and subscribe below the channel.
So nice, man. Oh my gosh. My hand's just not warmed up. How did they get in there and shut the door, or was it already open? That should not happen. I feel like that shouldn't have happened, right? I would like something happening. Awesome. I enter these weird spots we need to stop. That's what I'm talking about. I can't see it because I'm not on performance mode. You love that? Performance mode, I don't see through those little bushes. They can see me outside shooting. I'm a stall. I see it. Ooh, we got a purple top!
Damn. Give me that.
Tell me the pros and cons of each one. And bluntly speaking, you gotta follow the money, right? If Fortnite OG is not successful and the player count is really low, and Fortnite isn't really making money from OG, then they will cancel it, right? We've seen Fortnite cancel huge events, huge modes, just because the player count was low. And Fortnite did suffer from player count issues. There were moments where Fortnite definitely suffered from player count issues. So, talk to me. At the end of the day, you gotta follow where the money's at. If it's gonna make money, they're gonna do it. If it's not gonna make money, they're not gonna do it. That simple. Wait, do the exact same thing, but I want you to put like a rating on each of those out of 10. Wait a minute, you're not really being. Like, what do you mean permanent side mode? Like, here's the thing, right? Forget everything you just said. WoW Classic. After being looped and repeated, it got extremely stale, and pretty much it's dead, right? No one's really playing WoW Classic. I mean, they're playing the hardcore mode, but that's just different. Blunt truth about OG. There is no perfect option. I feel like no matter what option you do, you're going to have a lower player count than before. Yeah, but I'm talking about like the hype part.
Please pray for my daughter. Roy? Yes, sir. All right, I have 6,000 here right now. I can decide everything to tell you. The color market is now live on the US App Store, and you can trade on literally anything. Like how long I can hang on this basketball. Or if my bears will lead open. You can trade on anything, news, sports, politics. Right now, best odds, biggest famous, lowest fees. Download Goldberg on the App Store. How long is that? Give it a shot. Roy? Yes, sir. All right.
So this guy can't be a model even though he uploaded Morgan's pictures onto the Republic review. Let's talk about why. What up, Javier? He's 2262 from Miami, Florida. This is his first image, second image, third image, fourth image. You basically don't even know what a model looks like, Javier, and it's evident by what you submit. And this isn't just like a you problem, this is a lot of aspiring models. You guys prematurely send in images without showing that you respect the industry enough to know what we're looking for. And it doesn't bother me because, I mean, going off all you guys, but it bothers a lot of agents because you guys waste a lot of people's time. It's like basically going to like a girl dating profile. It's like, listen, specifically what you're looking for, man, and you meet none of those requirements, yet you still try to shoot your shot. Modeling is not a try to shoot your shot type of thing. You gotta show that you respect the industry, any industry that you try to emerge in, by the way. Past things that you should know.
Fortnite movie, Rotten Tomatoes score over 100%. Thank you, Dr. You don't have to wait, jackass. We're talking about your next space. So this space, I put at 6% about 2% influence. So again, you typically got to do it based on whatever is about 2%. So if you have some guy.
No, it's the people at the top of like the dating market typically have to like it's literally a stereotype that they're like chat a lot of times. Well, I think Jordan Merritt, the top level, is gay. Like the point I'm making is like a lot of the most attractive people. Is like a lot of the most attractive people are like chat a lot of times. Why do you think Jordan Merritt, the top level, is gay? Like the point I'm making.
No, it's the people at the top staying in the